Hey everybody, this is the BS Podcast Network. I'm Ben Dorst.
Steven Dominguez.
At least this show is better than pure BS.
What?
What
are you? I'm Batman.
Who are you?
My name is
Bond.
I'm
Batman.
name's Bond.
James Bond.
I'm Batman.
Bond.
James Bond.
I'm Batman. I'm Batman. This is the Batman vs. James Bond show. The show covering everything related to Batman and James Bond movies. And now, here's your host, Brian Thomas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to an all-new episode of the Batman vs. James Bond show. The name's Thomas, Brian Thomas, and I am your host. And this is the show where we discuss everything related to Batman and James Bond movies. It's great to be back. Oh yeah, that's right, we're here. Another week, another episode. Oh yeah. I hope you all have had a fantastic week. Mine was really good. It was a really great week, as a matter of fact. Kind of low-key, I think it feels like, after, meeting some, celebrities last weekend and, prepping for New York Comic-Con in a couple weeks. I'm actually preparing for another event. I make myself sound like a celebrity, even though I'm really not. I'm doing this thing, and it's called Open Streets, and it's for you Maryland listeners out there. It's actually going to be in Columbia, Maryland, so I hope you can make it out there. It's called Open Streets, and pretty much what it is it gives me an excuse to dress up in my Batman costume. I'm going to go out there, and it's promoting safe crossing of streets, riding bicycles, and it's for families, and it's for everybody, as a matter of fact. It's this is my first time, but, everything that I've been told, it looks amazing, and it's for a great cause, and, it's one more excuse for me to wear my Batman suit, of course, right? So I've been spending this last weekend, and, make a long story short, we'll just say that I had some help trying to glue the leg armor of my suit, because that became a problem last time. And if I didn't tell you guys, and for you cosplayers out there, you'll enjoy this. For everybody else, then just sit tight just for a second. There's something called leg armor, of course, and it's not just like, how they do in the movies. I don't know how the actors do this. They probably spend numerous amounts of time. Maybe Ben Affleck, it's easy for him. Maybe he has kind of like a onesie suit. When it comes to Christian Bale's Batman, obviously, it might have been in separate pieces depending on which costume it was. Mine is a Batman Begins, and unfortunately it's broken into two different parts. It's broken into a chest armor and a leg armor, and the leg armor was in all separate sorts of pieces, and I had to, glue it, and it's very messy, but you know what? The payoff definitely was worth it. So, I'm looking forward to doing that. And like I said, I'm just going to refer to it. I don't even want to call it the Batman costume anymore. I just want to call it the suit. I was telling that to my wife. I was like, I just want to call it the suit because it just sounds great. And you know what? Maybe the suit can also be used for James Bond out there too. And So, and speaking of James Bond, here it is again, folks. This is why I say this is possibly why I love doing this show so much, because I love these characters, as you can tell. So my wife asked me to, she's like, Halloween's coming up right around the corner. We're going to do a Halloween party. And she's saying, well, what are you going to be? Well, it's like, I just spent like way more money than I should on a Batman costume. And I think I need to put it to use. And I love dressing up as Batman. She's like, wait, you can't be Batman again. You're always Batman. I'm like, okay, so what do you want to do? She's like, well, why don't we do like this, a husband and wife kind of, skeleton kind of ghost suit couple or something like that, like a new married couple, because we are. And I'm like, okay, so I came up with an idea. And what did I come up with? That's right. So I'm thinking James Bond, Spectre, the pre-title sequence, his Day of the Dead outfit that he had in there. I'm talking the top hat. I'm talking the skeleton mask. I'm talking the skeleton suit in there. Yeah, I've been doing research the last couple of days, and you know what? I think I'm going to make this happen. So once again, any excuse to dress up or to try to be like Batman and James Bond. No, I don't need, to be told, obviously I'm not Batman or James Bond. I just love the characters. So now that I've had my little rant there, anyway, I hope you guys have had a great week. So let's get back on point here, okay? That's why sometimes maybe having a guest on the show would be great, because sometimes they can just point me in the right direction, or if not, I'm just going to rant and just keep on going. So how about this? Just a reminder that the Batman vs. James Bond show can be found on the BS Podcast Network. You can find my show and a whole bunch of other great shows on bspodcastnetwork.com. That is bspodcastnetwork.com. Shout out to Steven and Ben over there. They do a show called Pure BS Podcast. It's a great show. It's a little bit of everything in there. Kind of like a guy talk, I would say. They talk some Batman in there. They did a thing about a week or so ago about a favorite movie TV cars in there. And of course, they had the Batmobile in there. Surprised me which one they had in there, but to see which one they picked, go listen to their episodes. Anyway, and as a quick disclaimer, and I kind of threw this out at the very beginning, but I'll throw it out again. So I like to throw it out before every show, especially for the new listeners. Welcome. Thank you for joining me. I am not a movie critic, obviously, and I am not a movie blogger for a website. I'm my own blogger. I blog about whatever I feel like it. That's my interpretation of a blog, obviously, is this podcast. And if it hasn't been clear by now, for those of you just tuning in, I'm obsessed with Batman and James Bond. Yeah, let's put it this way. Let me tell you how much more obsessed I was. Today, I'm just planning an outfit, just what to wear, just, kind of go out and celebrate my wife's birthday. I was going to save that for later, but let me just get that out now. It is my wife's birthday. She is turning 26. No, I'm just kidding. She is way older than that. No. All right, I'm going to be spontaneous here. I'd like to introduce a very special guest. She was in the room being very loud, so I figured we'll just bring her in now. The birthday girl herself, my wife, Christy. Hi, babe. How are you?
Good. Woo!
Say hi to all listeners. All right, you did that already.
Hello, everyone. Hola. All 5 of you.
Very funny. 200 and counting. I guess the biggest question everybody has, the question everybody has to know right now is, are you a Batman and or James Bond fan?
No.
She's breaking my heart. She's just saying that just because she knows just to hurt me anyway, guys. All right, come on. There's got to be a Batman or James Bond movie that you do like. Come on. You remember you watched Casino Royale that one time that you didn't fall asleep all the way through it? I made you watch it. You at least like Casino Royale, right?
I like the locations.
Okay, she likes the location. You like the love story that they had in there, right?
Sure.
Okay. All right, how about this? How do you put up with my fandom when it comes to Batman and James Bond?
I don't.
All right, guys, let's face it. She thinks that I'm a nerd, and she thinks that I, just sit in here talking to myself, which essentially I am doing majority of the time, right?
Yes.
Okay, she's not very talkative tonight. That's okay. Just want to wish you a happy birthday, baby, and now you have your name and your voice all over iTunes, okay? And everybody's been wishing you a happy birthday all day. So once again, happy birthday. I love you.
Thank you. Love you too.
Okay, now back to the show. Okay. And there she goes, the love of my life. All right, enough of the sappy moments. Let's get back and talk some Batman and James Bond. So let's get down to business tonight, folks. We got a lot to talk about tonight. No special episode tonight, and but trust me, a lot of stuff to cover. So let's hop into some news here. First news story is a two-parter, but let me get through it, and then I'm going to shed some comment on it. This past week at an investor call, Time Warner Chairman CEO Jeff Books, he was talking about right now it's kind of, I would almost call it like a State of the Union with what's going on with the DC films. He was kind of saying what happened with Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice, and Suicide Squad. He's like, the strategy worked. The execution did deliver what we wanted it to do. We can do a little better on the creative. We're right on course or better. And when he was talking about that, he was talking more about Suicide Squad and how it had a strong box office performance. He also reiterated about DC Films co-ed Jeff Johns, about injecting some lightness into the movies and going forward, and how they're thinking about it, kind of making it lighter. We've kind of talked about that before. And Bukes finally said the reboot of Batman with Ben Affleck in the role was a big success. So before I jump into the next part, let's look at this. So we've talked about how DC Films, to each his own. If you're a Marvel fanboy, or if you're a, fanboy of like the Fox, Marvel movies or just whatever. Let's talk about DC Films. They're known for being more serious. They're known for having that darker tone, less humor. We even heard about a year ago that they were going to say, oh, no jokes in the film. It's going to be just more serious and so forth. And to that, they really did deliver that when it came to Batman v Superman. I mean, there were maybe a few quips in there. She with you? I thought she was with you. with Suicide Squad, though, it was a little different. That you could feel that, they were trying to go in a different direction with that. And it was almost like you saw a couple different films in that, and you saw like one side that was much darker, and then you saw something that was lightened up more, and there was way more humor in there. So to that, I always say that, you need to... And this is just me speaking as a fan, okay? This is just what I would like to see in the Batman films, at least like the Batman films. And when we talk about Batman films, yeah, it does fall in the DC universe because they do cross in there. But when it comes to Batman films, I want a great story. That's all I've ever asked for. I want a good interpretation of the character. When it came to, just looking at, the design of, how they did, Batman, how they brought him back onto screen. After we had the Dark Knight trilogy, how are you going to bring Batman on screen? Well, you decided to go in a direction of how he would react to the events of Man of Steel. And I like that. I really did. I just wish that it would have been separate films. I wish you would have had a standalone Batman film to begin, and see what I did there. I wish you would have started with a separate Batman film, and then you could intertwine these two characters of Superman versus Batman. I think it would have raised the stakes even more. What they've done with Ben Affleck as Batman, I think we can all agree that, what we've seen so far, he's given a really good interpretation of Batman, something we really haven't seen before. I'm not just talking about his costume and the cowl. I just think that, he plays the part really well. And in the sense that, yeah, you could see him as being like Bruce Wayne. I love the voice modulator that they had with his voice. He didn't have to do a deep voice. I loved every scene that him and Jeremy Irons as Alfred was in. As a matter of fact, I think I liked almost every single Batman scene. Did he kill in there? Yes, he killed. We've talked about that before also. And, to that I say, okay, go back and look at every single Batman film interpretation we've had so far. Each and every one of those Batmans has killed, whether it was, Ra's al Ghul, whether it was the Joker, whether it was Two-Face. There's been all different kinds of, Batman interpretations, and there will be for a long time to come. But going back here, I think we can all agree that Batman is back, okay? Not that he ever left, but just that this new interpretation of Batman, I like the direction that they're heading with it. Going back to even to the Justice League teaser footage that we had at this past Comic-Con, at San Diego Comic-Con, you see even Bruce Wayne's interaction with Barry Allen with the Flash. And, it's just like, I'm putting together a team, and he's like, yeah, I'll join. And he's like, really? Just like that? And, you can already tell that they're lightening up, or Ben Affleck, maybe, now that he's an executive producer, maybe he's going to just say, okay, well, maybe that was the darkest we've ever seen Batman. Good enough. Now we're going to move it into, okay, now I'm going to lighten up a little bit. Now I'm going to be more just like, okay, haha, yeah, I'm Batman. Whatever kind of thing. And, if that's the direction they decide to go, please do that, but tread carefully, because we all know what happens. I don't want you to fall into the Joel Schumacher types of Batman and Robin. Please don't do that. Now, as for Suicide Squad, let's go back to that. Like I said, two different movies in one almost. You had the David Ayer version, I feel, and you had a music video in some sorts, and definitely a lot of music in there, the soundtrack. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. You can definitely have songs in a movie. That's great. But I mean, at the same time, just felt like, okay, well, I'm going back to the days of MTV, and what kind of song are they going to play now? And I think that there was a lot of jumping. It was a little choppy. I wanted to see more Joker. I wanted to see more of Harley Quinn. I wanted to see more of Deadshot. And, I think, there's a whole lot of things. I won't nitpick that because I've done that in a review before. But, I like this, that the Warner Brothers, Time Warner, is addressing, saying, hey, you know what? We hear what everybody's saying out there. At the end of the day, though, they don't even have to hear what we're putting out there. They can just, they have that power. That's what makes them a studio. But I want them to, instead of being, how can I say this? Instead of being, earmuffs, okay? Instead of being pussies, okay, then they need to just, make a movie. They need to they needed to make a decision. They need to make a decision about what kind of movie that they want to do. They don't need to worry about the other guy. Let's focus on one movie at a time and then just make it to the best of their ability, and that's the direction they're going in. If they want to take a dark, grittier tone, cool. I'm with you on that. If they want to take a lighter approach, okay, well, don't try to be like the other guy, but no matter what, you're going to be compared to the other guy. And yeah, the other guy is obviously MCU, whatever. And they do good films over there, all things considered. But yeah, it's just I don't know, maybe there's been a studio change or a head in the studio change since the last couple Batman movies. I have no idea. It just feels like this however the studio is right now, it's just like they kind of want to follow up, just what's whatever the trend is right now. And I'm not saying that hasn't happened before. I'm just saying that they just need to make a decision which way they want to go. So we'll leave it at that. Now, I did say I had a second part to this story. So after speaking about Batman v Superman Suicide Squad, Bukes also said this. Ben Affleck announced a Batman movie. He's going to direct, star, write. I think it's a year and a half out. And to that I say, yeah, imagine that. Well, we knew the Batman movie was coming, okay? We already knew a standalone Batman movie with Ben Affleck writing it, directing it, and starring in it. And I think we've all known that was coming. But how about this? Now we're getting a date for when this could actually happen. This is great because now you know that this is definitely going to happen. I mean, it's not just a question of, is it really going to happen? Is it we need a reality check? It's like, no. By March 2018, we will finally have a standalone Batman movie. And to that, I'm really excited about that because sure, the shared universe is really cool. It's cool to see Superman and Batman fighting it out on screen. It's cool to see Wonder Woman, Superman fighting Doomsday along with Batman. But sometimes I like seeing the standalone movies. I guess I'm old school. I liked, it goes back to me and the Burton movies, to the Nolan trilogy. I like Batman. I like him having some friends to help out sometimes, but just like, why? Because he's Batman. Because that's what he does. Him and Alfred kicking ass, putting criminals and, all the bad guys into Arkham Asylum and so forth. I love that kind of stuff. So, we already know that, I can never get his last name right. Joe Moya, I think it is. The guy who's married to Sofia Vergara, who was dressed in a Wonder Woman costume, on her Instagram, by the way. I don't know if I ever had a chance to post that, but I make sure I do. Yeah, it was amazing. Anyway, he's going to be Deadshot. We know he's going to be the villain in the Batman movie, the standalone movie, or he's going to be maybe one of many villains. We know that much. We know that it's a possibility that Jared Leto's Joker, assuming that he returns, he could be in the movie. And we've heard rumors that, it could be an Arkham Asylum set movie with Batman in there, and that would be really cool. But what I'm getting at, though, is by March 2018, what are we in? We're at the end of September. Wow, I almost said August. We're at the end of September, so yeah, in less than a year and a half, we will get a brand new Batman standalone movie, so let the speculation begin. Woo! All right, so moving on here, let's talk a little bit about some other stories that happened in this past week. There's always been this rumor going around about Bryan Cranston, and at one time it was talked about that he would be playing Lex Luthor. And to that I was thinking, oh, that would be amazing, because I don't know if you're like me. I really love Bryan Cranston, what he did or what he brought to the role in Breaking Bad. And I really think he would have made an amazing Lex Luthor. I mean, just imagine Heisenberg as Lex Luthor. Let that sink in. How amazing would that be if you had that? Say my name, Lex Luthor. You're goddamn right. I really think, and just going on with that, I mean, I think that was a missed opportunity. That's exactly what that was. That was a missed opportunity. I know Jesse Eisenberg it wasn't planned for him to be Lex Luthor, and I had my feelings on him as well. And I went back about a week or so ago and I watched it. I'm like, I don't know. I really don't. I think he overacted in a way. I don't know. It was something about it. I mean, he had some good moments, but I just think that imagine if Bryan Cranston was in that role, and it can only be a what if now, but I mean, if I were a director, if I were Zack Snyder, well, yeah, I would do a lot of things different, but I would have casted Bryan Cranston. Now, there's also this rumor that was going around, and it actually was confirmed now by Bryan Cranston himself. He was talking in an interview, and he mentioned a few times that he was never actually approached by Zack Snyder and Warner Brothers. However, it does sound like he was actually approached for Justice League, and this is where it gets interesting. So in a quote, he said, "I've been asked to take a look at Commissioner Gordon, and it's, well, I would be one in several movies. I'd kind of like to carve out a new identity." And he went on saying, it's almost like to the point where he wasn't too keen on like the multi-picture deal, or essentially like, being a supporting player. Yeah, like I said, it's Commissioner Gordon. I mean, yeah, I could see him have that look of Commissioner Gordon. I mean, you could go and make anybody, or for any character, you can, within reason, at least for Commissioner Gordon. I mean, you have J.K. Simmons, and without the mustache and without the hair, yeah, he really doesn't look like Commissioner Gordon. But judging from this photo, yeah, they made him look like Commissioner Gordon. That's great. I mean, and the interpretations of it in Commissioner Gordon usually are, he has some brown or gray hair. He has a gray mustache sometimes, and you can think of like the Pat Hingle version. You can think of the Gary Oldman version, and I'm sure J.K. Simmons will put his own spin, and he is a great actor. I really enjoy him. I'm excited about this. But if you had Bryan Cranston as that, I think there would be almost too much of a safe role for Bryan Cranston. I think, I'm sure he could bring it. I really do. But I like seeing him as the bad guy. And, I really still hope to this day that maybe they'll just say, okay, the Lex Luthor that they had from Batman v Superman, that's Junior. And Lex Luthor Senior is the real badass. And, somehow we're going to he's been in hiding this whole time. He comes out, he's ready to come out of retirement, and, he's just going to say, okay, son, move out of the way. Here comes the real Lex Luthor. But, yeah, anyway, a boy can dream, right? Yeah, so as with him as playing Commissioner Gordon, I think that it's probably for the best. I'm excited about J.K. Simmons, so maybe one day Bryan Cranston will become Lex Luthor. Who knows? We'll see. So let's move into some James Bond news. This next story I definitely wanted to talk about. It was a recent interview with the German magazine Zeit Magazine Man, and it was with Mr. Christoph Waltz. So Christoph Waltz was revealing, and he was talking about, he remains in the dark about what his return as the main villain of Ernst Stavro Blofeld. Kind of like how he's unsure about if he wants to return as Blofeld, and he was saying that he almost failed to nail the role of his role in Spectre. He quoted this saying, "I don't know about playing Blofeld again. Nobody knows. It wasn't talked about except in the press. Right now, nobody even knows which studio will produce the next and if Daniel will return. All of that is filed under carry on." So, like I said, if actually, I was just watching Spectre, little bits and pieces of it throughout the day today, specifically the ending where you actually get to see the most of Christoph Waltz. And, when it comes to that, I did like him as Blofeld. I really did. I know what they were trying to do with him in that role. Kind of like doing the whole Dr. No of like, okay, here's the big reveal. Here's, we're not going to reveal him. We'll let you know that he's there, but in the background, but we won't actually show him till almost 3/4 of the way of the movie, and then, it's Bond versus Blofeld and so forth. But, an actor, I've seen a couple of his movies before. I saw him in Inglourious Bastards. I saw him in Django Unchained. Loved him in both of them. And yeah, he's a 2-time Oscar winner, and he's, despite what you guys think about the Oscars, yeah, usually when they do give awards for, sometimes it really is to actors who deserved it, and he is definitely an actor who deserved it. Now, when I found out he was going to be playing Blofeld, which we all knew he was going to play anyway, he was going to be playing Blofeld in Spectre, I was like, yes, they he definitely can play this. I know he's going to do it. When I finally saw the movie, I'm like, he did good. He did really good, as a matter of fact. And I think I wanted more of it. And maybe and I'm thinking of it one of two ways. Maybe it's because they waited too long to do the big reveal. Maybe it was the writing, because remember at the time, I blame this anyway for the Sony hacks that were going on. Maybe it's just the story in general. Maybe that's just, they could have wrote Blofeld a little bit better, and maybe he's one of those actors like, he can only do so much, just as any actor. I really want to see him back. And I'm sure I've said that before on the show, that I want to see him have one more go around against Danny Boy. I want those two to go head to head. I want them to, I want it to be an all out revenge kind of thing. I know we've had those kind of things with Daniel Craig, James Bond, but what if? And here's the scenario. Here's my pitch for the next James Bond movie. All right, you heard it here first. So, spoiler alert for those of you that haven't seen Spectre. Cover your earmuffs. You have Daniel Craig's James Bond and Madeline Swan ride off into the sunset. They end up getting married, and then what happens? Well, Christoph Waltz breaks out of jail, and maybe they resurrect a character. Maybe they resurrect Mr. Hinks. Maybe they do I forget her name. She was on Her Majesty's Secret Service. She was kind of like she was actually the lady that was shooting the machine gun at the very end of On Her Majesty's Secret Service. I can never remember her name. Older lady, red hair. Anyway, so they bring her back, and they end up break Blofeld out of jail, and then they do the whole kind of a recreation of On Her Majesty's Secret Service with the wedding, and Madeline Swan dies, unfortunately. James Bond comes back to the Secret Service, and then he goes to track down Blofeld, and kind of like that, from what I understand, the book You Only Live Twice, where he goes to get revenge, and then it ends off with him, at the very end, getting Blofeld. Maybe he kills him, maybe he doesn't. I have no idea. I'd really like to see that kind of interpretation with it, though. I think him and Daniel Craig definitely had that chemistry of the brothers, like the older brother versus the younger brother. I think they knocked that out of the park with that, as a matter of fact. It could be because he was trying to follow behind what Xavier Bardem did with Mr. Silva. That could be another thing, because Xavier Bardem gave such a great, amazing performance with Mr. Silva that Blofeld just was like, I don't know. I have no idea, but I wouldn't say I don't want to rule out Christoph Waltz. I don't want to rule out Daniel Craig just yet either, as a matter of fact. I just I wish we would hear something sooner or later about this. I really do. So who knows? Anyway, let's move into some birthdays here. A lot of big birthdays happening this week. September babies like my wife. Mr. Mark Hamill, best known for voicing the Joker in Batman, the animated series, Batman the Arkham series, and most recently Batman the Killing Joke. He celebrated a birthday on September 25th. I know we all talk about, who our favorite interpretation is of Batman, who our favorite interpretation is of the Joker, especially of all villains being the Joker. I think something that always gets forgotten, and I specifically do, and I don't do it intentionally, of course, is Mark Hamill's the animated version of the Joker. And that is a very, very sinister Joker, and a lot of people consider that to be the best interpretation of the Joker. And I can definitely hear you on that one. Just hearing Mark Hamill's voice, and it's something you wouldn't even expect either. And just seeing it in Batman the Killing Joke, and remembering when I used to watch Batman the animated series, I think he always, brings it every time he does that. I think that it would have been really interesting to see him on screen as the Joker, as a matter of fact. But, everything that he's done for the Joker, I hope that he continues to voice it as long as he possibly can. For those of you that didn't get a chance to see Batman the Killing Joke, it's really a great, it's more of kind of a Joker origin story. So if you're into that, then I think you really will enjoy it. It's taken right out of the graphic novel. Some people didn't like the Batgirl stuff at the very beginning, but if you like the Batman versus Joker, if you like that whole rivalry, you will love The Killing Joke. So happy birthday, Mark Hamill. Moving on, the next birthday is Mr. Will Smith, who played Deadshot in Suicide Squad. He celebrated a birthday also on September 25th. So we really haven't had a chance to, aside from Suicide Squad, to talk too much about Will Smith. He only gave us, he's only given us one role so far in the Batman, we'll call it Batman movie / Suicide Squad. I think that him versus Ben Affleck's Batman, what I saw on screen with those two, I really just want to see. I hope he does return for the new Batman solo film. I really do. At least some kind of cameo. I think they have a great character with Will Smith's Deadshot. I mean, he's got the acting chops. He really does. I think that what he did with the Deadshot character, he has that humor. He knows when to do it. He has that sarcasm, and he knows how to do action. So I'm really excited about what he brought with Deadshot, and I can't wait to see him more on screen. So another birthday here is Michael Madsen. He celebrates a birthday on September 25th. He played Falco in Die Another Day. Now, some will consider that the forgotten James Bond film. Yes, it is still considered one of the actual James Bond movies, but you either love it or hate it. Me, it's a guilty pleasure. It really is. I just said love it or hate it, but for me, it is a guilty pleasure because I remember when I went to see this movie and, no, I'm not going into a Die Another Day, rant here. I'm just going to say that, I remember back in 2002 when this movie came out, all the promotions for this, and, I remember seeing the trailers for this, and I knew Michael Madsen, and I knew, like, the kind of roles that he's done before, and like I said, Die Another Day is a guilty pleasure movie for me. I can just watch it, and enjoy it for what it is. It's got some. I will say the first half it's great. The second half, that's really where it falls. CGI Bond, yeah. But I love the scene in here with Michael Madsen just because he's kind of like he's giving Judi Dench's M such a hard time, saying Bond, he's a loose cannon. You need to get your people in check, or we will. When Bond is crossing the North Korea to South Korea line. I remember that, and he's like, look at him, and you think he's some kind of hero. And I love that because he's like, yeah, I don't trust James Bond. This guy is I don't know if he's a mole. I don't know what he is, but he's, a double agent that confessed and gave up my people, and I want him. I want his ass. Stuff like that. So, I really like it. Despite what people think about Die Another Day, I think Michael Madsen, I think he's one of the pros, one of the better parts of the movie. So the final birthday here is Martine Beswick, celebrated a birthday on September 26th. And she actually had the pleasure of playing two roles in two different James Bond movies. She played Zora in From Russia with Love, and she played Paula in Thunderball. Now, I did not know this until this time because I guess I never really noticed it. Zora, for those of you that have seen From Russia with Love, and for those of you that haven't, definitely go watch that. It is a classic James Bond movie, a must-see. She played, if you remember the Gypsy Camp, when James Bond was there, and the two girls were fighting over the one guy, and Bond was kind of being told, he's like, okay, whatever happens, just don't do anything, just watch, and so forth. So you're gonna watch two ladies fight it out over a guy. Well, interesting enough. But Zora was actually one of the gypsy girls that were fighting in there, which is pretty cool. Now, she also played Paula. Paula in Thunderball was, and if you remember, she was when they were in the Bahamas, she was kind of like the contact there. She worked with Felix Leiter there also. Most notably, she was there when Bond was, just had met Domino, and they're in the boat scene there, and, he goes up and he's like, I've made contact. And she's like, that's not exactly what I would call contact. And, she ends up trying to start the boat. She's not able to, and Bond, undoes the engine, the boat engine, and, kind of leaves her there and so forth. But, I liked her. I thought she did a great job. She's definitely kind of like, she falls into the category of I would call it like the third string Bond girl. You never really know who the name of the girl is, or she has a forgettable name, but she's always there. And 9 times out of 10, unfortunately, she does die. But it is it's still it's cool to see a Bond girl in there, and she did a great job. All right, so let's move into the final part of the show called Versus. This is the part of the show where we compare movies of the Batman or James Bond universes versus other franchises in the same wheelhouse. Now, last week's Versus, I threw one at you guys, and it was a tricky one, and, let's just say it was Batman 1989 versus The Dark Knight. Yeah, and even as I said on the poll, even I can't decide this one, so I left it up to you guys. I left it out to the listeners and to the fans, and I gotta say I was kind of surprised at the results of this. Just more like how much this one movie was more favored than the other. It ended up being Batman 1989 coming in at 29% and The Dark Knight winning at 71%. Like I said, very surprised by that because I know we talked about it on the show before, but I know that there are a lot of Michael Keaton Batman fans out there. I know that Batman 1989, the same for me, it's such a great Batman movie, and the classic rivalry, as I always like to say, Batman versus the Joker, and that's exactly what both of these movies are. It's Batman versus the Joker, but two different interpretations of Batman and way two different interpretations of the Joker. If you're comparing these movies, you have Tim Burton's typical. It's a typical Tim Burton film because it's got that gothic kind of darker tone to it. It's set in a time where comic book movies they were laughed at, and then you have Batman 1989 come to the plate, and it just like, holy crap! This isn't the Adam West Batman. With all due respect to that, that's a kind of the TV show and the movie too. It's a kind of a campier Batman, and it didn't take itself too seriously. But here you have Batman 1989. I mean, you have a Joker who's murdering people. You have you actually see the death of Bruce Wayne's parents for the first time, to my knowledge anyway, aside from the comics. And it's just, it had humor in there, but overall, just the setting for Gotham City, it looked like it was set on a studio lot, definitely. It didn't look like it could be any specific city, whereas you have a movie like The Dark Knight, and it looks like it could be any city around the world, as a matter of fact. As far as I remember, The Dark Knight was primarily set in Chicago. I think the few shots from probably New York, but mainly set on location in Chicago. And it was such a great backdrop for this because the shots that Christopher Nolan did of Chicago, it kind of was a character in itself. It kind of it was the silent character, if you will. The tunnel chases, the bank scene at the very beginning when they're shooting, the Joker's men are shooting the rappel cables across from one building to the other. Just the driving of Bruce Wayne driving his Lamborghini underneath the bridge when he's trying to get to the hospital to Gotham General. Everything about that. I think, when it comes to just even the locations of these two, just the comparison of these two Gotham cities, I can tell you that they're the difference between night and day. The same with the Batmans, and this is where they're more comparable, is that the Batmans, I guess, aren't so much the focus of the movie, whereas the Jokers are. And I think that they're more Joker movies. Yeah, Joker is more, at least in Batman 1989, it's Jack Nicholson's name first. So of course, he might, because his name's first, because he was more credited star, that he's going to get more screen time. I think we'd have to go back and take a look at this, but I would say that Nicholson got a little bit more screen time than, say, Michael Keaton in that movie. When it came to The Dark Knight, I will say that when it came to screen time, I think Christian Bale still got more screen time than Heath Ledger, but every time that Heath Ledger's Joker was on screen, I think that he just stole the show. He really did. I'll say it again, over and over again, that Heath Ledger's Joker is just one of the best villains of all time that will ever have in movie cinema. Despite what kind of Joker, they took from the comics, they probably borrowed a whole bunch of little pieces in there, but I think what Heath Ledger's Joker has done just for villains, it's been interpreted so many times, as is The Dark Knight. And I was thinking about this the other day. When it comes to The Dark Knight, let's look at this. You have the bad guy. It's a sequel film, okay, but it could also be a standalone film. It's a time where things are better. Worse, they're getting, as the saying in the movie was, we're always going to get worse before they get better. We see that. We see the hero fall. We definitely see that when it comes to The Dark Knight, with Bruce Wayne's character specifically. He's dealing with that choice of being Batman or not. You also see something in there that's mocked through a lot of movies, especially even to this day, is the bad guy gets caught. And in this case, it was the Joker, and he wanted to get caught, and that's something that's been mimicked through so many movies since The Dark Knight, and this is back in 2008, and it's 8 years ago, and it's still being happened. That was his plan the whole time. He wanted to get caught. They wanted to get caught, and that's almost taken verbatim from that movie. And just like the cliffhanger ending that The Dark Knight had, whereas Batman 89 just had that whole, we're setting up an origin for the Joker. Batman is already Batman, but at the same time, it's still kind of left off with that happy ending. The Dark Knight's not a happy ending kind of movie, folks. It really isn't. For those of you that haven't seen that film, shame on you. No, I'm just kidding. Definitely go see that movie if you haven't. If you're a James Bond fan, you will absolutely love The Dark Knight. You will see a lot of James Bond Easter eggs in that movie. I can at least count off a handful of them in there. But going back to the Batman 1989 versus The Dark Knight, yeah, I will say The Dark Knight is, as a whole, is a better film. Batman 89 is a movie, is probably a little bit more enjoyable, but at the same time, I really can't decide which one I like more, but, just for the sake of argument, I will go with The Dark Knight. I will. And the thing that gets me about this is it's probably the ending in the quotes in that movie. You either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. There you go. That and just Heath Ledger's Joker. I love Jack Nicholson's Joker. I truly do. But Heath Ledger's Joker, I can just watch every scene of him in that film. If I see it on TV, I will stop and watch that. And sometimes I don't want to stop and watch that because I know I will just want to watch that movie from beginning to end. I really do. And it's a 2.5 hour movie practically. But yeah, so that is the versus. This week's versus is going to be a tough one for you James Bond fans. Yeah, and you if you haven't figured out what I'm going with right now, I'm doing more Batman versus Batman. I'm doing more James Bond versus James Bond, mainly because the national holiday celebration, or I want to call it a holiday anyway. Yeah, National Batman Day, Global James Bond Day. It's time to figure out what your favorite James Bond or favorite Batman movie is. So this week's versus is Goldfinger versus Skyfall. Oh yeah, how about that? The comparisons were definitely there from the very beginning. That's when Skyfall came out. Two very popular James Bond movies, very highly successful James Bond movies. And they can kind of go with that standalone thing, kind of like Batman 89 and The Dark Knight are as well. So I want you to decide. Make sure that you vote on Twitter at Batman vs. Bond. By the time you're listening to the show, the poll will be up, so make sure you get your vote in, and we will decide which one wins next week. So, that about wraps it up for this episode of the Batman vs. James Bond show. Please subscribe on iTunes, rate it 5 stars, and leave a nice little review for me. Follow me on the various social media networks, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Batman vs. Bond. Find the show on the BS Podcast Network, and also be sure to check out all the other great programming on there. Like James Bond, I will return. Until next time, I'm Brian Thomas. Thanks for listening, guys, and have a great week. Peace out.